Hi, this is Chaplain Johnson from the Spiritual Care Department, here with our Monday morning meditation. Uh, as always, we welcome you. We are so glad to have you for these moments that we have together. It is a joy of mine to share these words of inspiration and encouragement. We hope that they will be inspiration and encouragement to you as you are navigating your week and getting through your day. Certainly, we all need a boost. We all need a little help from our friends, and we need a little encouragement along the way. And so, as we share these words, we want to especially thank our administration, our entire administration, for helping us and encouraging us to share these messages of inspiration as a boost to our not only our staff and our caregivers who are top notch, great heroes in caring for those who come from our community who need our help, but also for many of you who are whatever stage and whatever place you're in, whether you're working throughout the hospital, whether you're in housekeeping or in food service, or whether you're answering the phones and making sure everyone is connected to the way they ought to be. Whatever it is, if you're welcoming those who are coming in the doors, in patient access, or running tests or in the lab, wherever you are in our hospital, we want you to know that you are especially appreciated. You're loved, you're appreciated, and you are irreplaceable. And so here we are. These words of encouragement for us today follow a track that we've been on for the last several weeks. We've been talking about finding faith. Finding faith. It is an important thing to find faith. And in our first sharing with you, we concluded that we were finding faith by remembering or in remembering. And last week, we talked about finding faith, yes, in what we call resurrection. It is that thing in which helps us to live again and to be able to find some way to give charge to our lives, to come back again, to live again. And this week, we want to talk about certainly finding faith in renewal. But we've given some specific direction for this lesson today and this talk. It's about finding faith by dealing with life's transitions. And I want to talk with you on something I think was just wonderful for me. It stood out to me, and it comes from a passage of scripture. And I know many of us, we share these messages, and often I try to leave it open so for all people of all faiths to find something that they would find meaning in. But today, I think there is still something here for everyone. But this biblical text, I think, rings out for me. It stands with me. And it tells the story about after Jesus has been crucified, and it's believed that he's been resurrected on what many of us will call Easter Sunday morning. That evening, however, these words come to us, and I'll be sharing with you from the Message paraphrase of the Bible, Luke chapter 24, and I'll be reading somewhere around the 13th verse, somewhere like that. And just so you can, if you have a Bible, if you'd like to, just follow along with us. If not, I won't go that deeply into it, but I do want to use it as a backdrop for our talk today. It says, the same day, two of them were walking to the village Emmaus, about 7 miles out of Jerusalem. And they were deep in conversation, going over all these things that had happened in the middle of their talk and questions. Jesus came up and walked along with them, but they were not able to recognize who he was. He asked, "What's this you're discussing so intently as you walk along?" They just stood there, long-faced, like they had lost their best friend. Then one of them, his name was Cleopas, said, "Are you the only one in Jerusalem who hasn't heard what's happened during these last few days?" And he asked, "What has happened?" And they said, "The things that happened to Jesus the Nazarene. He was a man of God, a prophet, dynamic in work and word, blessed by both God and all the people. Then our high priest and leaders betrayed him, got him sentenced to death, and crucified him. And we had our hopes up that he was the one about to deliver Israel. And it is now the third day since it happened. But now some of our women have completely confessed and confused us, really. Early this morning, they were at the tomb and couldn't find his body. They came back with the story that they had seen a vision of angels who said he was alive. And some of our friends went off to the tomb to check and found it empty, just as the women had said, and they didn't see Jesus. Well, I like that text and I like the story because I think it's meaningful for us to live and figure out how to live and deal with life's transitions. Most of us have found ourselves lately in this kind of flowing life. It seems like everything around us is in transition. We have discovered that certainly, as we've talked about so often, the pandemic has shaken our worldview, the things that we know, the things that we trust, the things that we've been able to lean on over the years. All of them now seem to be moving and shifting in ways. The people that we thought would always be there, now some of them, unfortunately, have gone on and have found new residence in what we call a celestial discharge. Others have found new places to work. Some have moved away. Some of our closest friends or those who've been close to us have changed zip codes and area codes. It's been a difficult time to try to hold on to the things that we've known. We've not been able to get back to our former way of life, and trying to figure out where the new way of life is even becomes harder. Someone once said this, and I think it was Kirk Byron Jones that offered these words that says, we're not as much afraid of the unknown as we are in losing the known. In other words, the things that we already know, we're afraid of losing those things, not so much afraid of what the new thing may be. And sometimes in life, we are caught in that transitional place, the place where we're not quite sure if we can go back or we can go forward, if we should go left or if we should go right, if we should stand still or if we should move in some direction. Sometimes life does not give us clues as to what we should be doing when and how, and sometimes that can be really frustrating. As it is in this story of these men, these disciples, if you will, who have heard about everything that's been happening with Jesus. They had known that he was crucified. They had been followers of his. He was their friend. And if you've ever imagined being close to a friend, someone that you have eaten with and laughed with and joked with and walked around with and, had conversations with. Now he has been gone. He's been crucified. He's gone in a tragic way, suddenly snatched away from them, and no longer are they able to imagine what life would look like in the future. All they had known was their present. He had died. And while they were deciding that they would no longer hang around in the place where their grief was most manifest, where they remembered the tragedy of what had happened on Good Friday, now they walk and they decide they're going to go on a long walk and go to a town called Emmaus to get away from it all. And while on their journey, someone walks alongside them, and there he listens and eavesdrops on their conversation. They don't even know he's there. They're so overcome with all the horrible things that have happened. And I guess some of us have felt like that over the past year or so. Our lives have been shaken up in so many ways, and daily it's happening. I don't know if I shared with many of you, but just a few weeks ago, maybe a month ago or so now, my brother died suddenly, and it rocked my family. It really took me out. I couldn't even come on to give a message here for our Monday morning meditation because I was out with family. Sometimes things like that can shake your world, and you can't really figure out how to get traction back to where you used to be. Well, they felt that way, and while they were there, they were talking about what had happened, and Jesus walks up to them and asks them as a stranger that they don't even recognize, and asks them what things have happened, and they go on to give voice to their grief. Their grief is not simply about what happened to Jesus, but it's about their lives being in transition. So I ask the question of you, what do you do when your life is in transition? When you're in that space where what you used to know now is coming to an end, and what you are not yet sure of has not dawned yet. You're in that really in between place. What do you do in those moments of life's transitions? There's an old hymn. I love old hymns, and you all will discover that. Old gospel hymn that is entitled Hold to His Hands, depending on the authors there. It is one that is familiar to me. I love it. It's one of my favorites. The author is Jeannie Wilson, who wrote this, talking about holding on to God's unchanging hands. And the verses say this: time is filled with swift transition. Naught on earth unmoved can stand. Build your hopes on things eternal. Hold to God's unchanging hand. The second verse says, trust in him who will not leave you whatsoever years may bring. If by earthly friends forsaken, still more closely to him cling. Covet not this world's vain riches, that so rapidly decay. Seek to gain the heavenly treasures, they will never pass away. And when your journey is completed, if to God you have been true, fair and bright the home in glory, your enraptured soul will view. And the chorus says, hold to his hands, God's unchanging hands. Build your hopes on things eternal. Hold to God's unchanging hands. Pardon the gender reference to God in that way, but I want you to hear what is important. As you are journeying through your life transitions, hold to something that is firm, your faith. Your faith in believing who God is, finding faith in those moments is important and imperative. If you have to remember it, if you have to resurrect it, if you have to renew it, do all that you can, because it's important to hold on. And in doing so, make sure that in holding on, you are clear about knowing who you are. I don't have time to kind of expound on the text and exegete it, but I do want you to get these important pieces. When you're in transition, sometimes everything around you will try to attempt to tell you you're not who you have been because you don't share the roles, you're not in the positions, you're not in the place, you're not with the people that you used to be with. But you have to know you. And the only way to know you is by reconnecting to the one who made you. That's important. I love that. Because in doing so, you then are able to know that transitions come all the time in life. We grow up, we get older, life changes, things happen, tragedies happen, pandemics happen. But in the midst of all of that, you are still the wonderful, beautiful, magnificent you that God made you. And that is so important to be you. Not only do you, or is it important for you to know who you are, but it's also important to know whose you are, whose you are. Whose you are. You are not your own. You're not left here. You're not abandoned. You're not kind of forsaken that no one knows. Even if you're in the hospital sick, even if you're standing by the bedside of your loved one, even if you are at home or if you're working here in the hospital trying to care for other people, I want you to know whose you are. And you're not simply floating around, but you belong to the one who loved you enough every day to make sure that he takes care of you. Good days, bad days, ups, downs, struggles, and successes. You are still God's child. And in that moment, it's good to know that you're not out here like a latchkey kid trying to figure out your way. like some of us grew up, like latchkey kids. Coming home, cook your own dinner, make your own lunch because people are working, parents are doing other things. But God doesn't leave us like latchkey kids. God takes care of us daily if you watch and pay attention. And even if you feel like you're alone, stand still a while. You'll discover that God will show up for you. Know who you are, know whose you are, and know in whom you believe. You know, these disciples who were on their way to Emmaus discovered at some point while they were talking that the story goes on to say Jesus says, well, let's pull into this place and let's sit down and rest and eat. And while they sat down to eat, he broke bread for them. And in the moment that he broke bread, they had an image of what happened at the table, and they recognized who he was. The fellowship helps us to know. And because of that, they knew in whom they believed and got up straightway. He somehow disappeared. I don't know how that story goes, and they made their way straight back to where they left in Jerusalem so they can tell the others that they had come in contact with God. They knew who they believed in. These are troubling times. And sometimes we don't know who to believe in, whether we believe in leadership in the country or whether we can believe in those who are leading our cities or our communities. Sometimes we can't even believe or don't feel like we can believe those who are our religious leaders or our faith leaders or our family members. But you can always believe that God, who loves you, still loves you. So you share that with each other. So I invite you on this Monday morning and throughout this week, as you're dealing with life's transitions, to remember who you are, remember whose you are, and remember in whom you believe. And as you do that, it doesn't get caught up in deep theological things. It's just about remembering that because faith is made up of those things. I know who I am. I know whose I am. And I know in whom I believe. And in that moment, I'm renewing my faith. Anyway, I pray that you have a great day, have a great week, and remember, as always, you're loved, you're appreciated, and you are irreplaceable. Have a great week, and I am praying for you. Keep praying for us. Thanks so much.